I'm asking you a question. What's the cut in the capital gains tax?
They've cut the capital gains tax. They did that. They did that as part of the coalition government.
No, they raised the capital gains tax in the coalition government.
Well, what I'm saying, Andrew, and
what you're saying is wrong. They raised the capital gains tax to 28%.
What I'm saying is that they've given tax cuts to absolutely the richest in the country at the same time where they've told the poorest people in this country over the past... It is true. At the same time that you've told the people in this country over the last 6 years, we've got to cut our coffee... No, let me finish this point because you've interrupted me and I want to make this point. It's really serious to people in this country that you've told people we've got to live within our means, we've got to have this austerity, we've got to cut. You've cut, and do you know what? Debt's rising and the amount of money that's going into the economy, you know, you've not made it better. Our economy is worse as a result of 6 years of austerity. And now you're saying all of a sudden we can spend money.
No, hold on.
Andrew Neil, the master of provocative questions, sat across from Angela Rayner and the tension in the air was palpable. It was clear from the very beginning that she was trapped. Neil asked her simple but insightful questions about the politics of the Labour Party, and each of his questions seemed to pierce her confidence. Rayner's answers were confusing and shockingly unconvincing, as if she didn't believe what she was saying. Absolutely. She tried to defend the plans of the Labour Party, but the facts that could back up her words were simply missing. Neil, not giving her a chance, pressed even harder, demanding clarity, and at that moment Rayner looked more and more confused, as if her world was collapsing before her eyes. The figures she cited turned out to be incorrect, and her political arguments made no sense. At some point, it became obvious that even she realized that she was not coping with the situation, and despair flashed in her eyes. It wasn't just an argument. It was a complete failure, a disaster that left her defenseless and vulnerable in the face of harsh reality.
And that's wrong because you're spending it.
You're just off now.
No, I'm
let
not
me bring you back to let me bring you back to the question. Look, you think there may be an election coming up, so you need to get your policies right. What would the capital gains tax be under a Labour government and how much would that raise compared to now?
But I've told you, Andrew, what our priority is. It's about how we invest in our public services.
No, I'm asking you how you would raise the money. How much money would you recoup?
Cut those taxes.
Excuse me, it's important you ask the questions because you want people's votes. How much extra money would you raise by changing the current corporation tax and capital gains tax structures?
It wasn't just a difficult interview, it was a wake-up call. If the leadership of the Labour Party is unable to explain its promises under pressure, what does this say about their true intentions? Social media literally exploded. Excerpts from interviews filled the feeds, and people began to wonder, is this really the future of Labour? Even their most loyal supporters looked disappointed and confused. Neil's interview not only exposed Angela Rayner's unpreparedness, but also highlighted a much more serious problem that worries everyone. Promises sound great in speeches, but when they are analysed by a sharp mind like Andrew Neil's, the truth becomes inescapable. And here's the bitter truth. Rayner failed to defend Labour's ambitious ideas, and the public noticed it. This failure was a blow not only to her, but to the entire party, leaving many confused and uncertain about the future.
Andrew, we've talked about in absolute detail about the current tax system, and we said actually that the money, that the decisions that the government have made and the decisions on where they're spending current money is completely inappropriate.
So how much would you say?
You've cut 50%. In my constituency, both of my councils have seen over 50% cuts to their budget. So all of the people that need support are in acute services now, crippling our NHS.
So you would be able to give them more money by changing the corporation tax and changing the capital gains tax to raise more money.
You don't cut taxes when you need that money to help. You should be investing.
You don't know, do you?
You should be investing
in those
services. No, Andrew, I'm talking about investment with the money we've currently got.
If you can't confirm your words, how can you expect anyone to trust you as a leader? Labour's bold promise to build 1.5 million homes sounded impressive, but the real problem was that Angela Rayner couldn't answer the key question. In an interview given shortly after her disastrous meeting with Andrew Neil, she was faced with a difficult question. Who are these houses really for? Will they be provided to British families desperate for affordable housing, or will they be given to immigrants? Her response was complete silence, evasiveness, and a refusal to give a clear answer. She insisted that Labour's housing plan was for everyone, but when pressed with specific questions, she simply ran away from the answer. leaving viewers confused and perplexed. It wasn't just an evasion, it was a sign of weakness that couldn't help but alert.
You made 10 policy pledges for this campaign. Let's see how watertight they are. Can you guarantee that under your leadership, the 2019 Labour commitments to nationalise water, energy, rail, the Royal Mail, they'll all be in Labour's next election manifesto?
I've made that commitment. The pledges I've made indicate the direction of travel, but I am well aware that there's a huge amount of work that needs to be done between now and 2024, because that 2024 manifesto has to reflect the state of the nation in 2024 and face the late 2020s.
And things change. I understand.
Well,
I understand
a lot
that,
of things
and I
will
don't
change.
want you. I'm not consider asking you to write the manifesto, but those 4 industries will be in the Labour manifesto for nationalisation come 2024.
This single refusal to answer caused a real resonance among the disappointed public. Critics did not miss the opportunity to recall that Labour had previously promised to fight immigration, but the number of migrants continues to snowball. So will these houses really help solve the housing crisis, or is it just another empty slogan that has no real basis? What's even more disturbing is how unrealistic that promise looked. In many areas of the UK, families have been living for years waiting for housing, and their hopes are gradually fading. At the same time, the public is bitterly aware that Labour has done too little to solve the problems of overpopulation and insane rent increases. Instead of providing clarity and certainty, Rayner and Starmer's evasive answers only increased distrust and suspicion, leaving people confused and disappointed.
They will. They're baseline indicators of where we're going. I think that we'll need to think about how we do it. Well, they will be. They are. What I'm saying to the members here is we need to build the case from where we are now to 2024. Lots of things are going to change between now and 2024. It's not unlikely that we'll be leaving the EU without a deal. We don't know what the state of the economy will be. Manufacturing could well take a hit. So we're going to have to craft that 2024 manifesto looking forward. My pledges are an indication to our members as to what I think is important, the direction of travel and what we will build.
The question is quite obvious and leaves no room for doubt. If Labour can't honestly say who these houses are for, how can voters trust their plans for even a moment? The British public has exhausted its patience, tired to the limit of loud promises that remain empty words. People don't just want to hear about building houses. They long to know who will live in them, who will get a chance for a better future, who will finally be able to find hope. If there is one thing that causes real fury, it is Labour's decision to postpone the election until 2026-2027. For many, this is not just a postponement, it is a desperate attempt to stay in power at all costs. A game of survival. And the timing of this decision looks extremely suspicious, as if Labour is trying to hide its true intentions from voters who deserve honesty and transparency.
Starmer, a pledge is not an indication. A pledge is a word, is your word. It's a pledge.
I'm not disputing that. I don't have any problem.
So is it a pledge that these industries will be in your manifesto for nationalisation?
Yes, it is. The point I'm making to you is the manifesto will have to have a lot more than that.
Of course, I understand
It's not a manifesto.
Well, what about university tuition fees then? Will you remain committed to scrapping them in your first term?
They're all pledges, Andrew. So the answer to these questions is yes.
So university tuition fees being scrapped will be in a Starmer manifesto?
Yes, that's why it's
the next election. OK. Why then doesn't the Labour left trust you?
Well,
the Labour Party's rating is falling rapidly and they are well aware of this. At the same time, Nigel Farage's Reform Party is getting stronger every day. Once considered a minor player, Farage is now a real threat. His straightforward approach allows him to establish a deep connection with voters, who feel that the political elite simply ignores them. And what are the Labour Party doing? Instead of bravely accepting the challenge, they are stalling as if hoping that everything will work itself out. And this does not go unnoticed. People are furious. Delaying the election looks like the Labour Party is afraid of responsibility, while trust in their leadership is already on the verge of collapse. Polls speak for themselves. Voters are tired to the limit of unfulfilled promises and ill-conceived plans. Instead of solving the problems that they themselves have created, the Labour Party continues to play politics.
Surely, when you promised that you would end it within 100 days, you knew what you were going to do, right?
Well, I've been very clear that it's a very complex situation in regards to leasehold. We will abolish the current system.
It's part of a pattern, is that you, in opposition, pledged to do lots of things that you said were going to be simple, and now you're not doing them. Another one, for example, is we heard the Prime Minister this week, just a minute, Deputy Prime Minister, we heard the Prime Minister this week saying we were going to have 95% clean power rather than 100% clean power, whilst at the same time saying that the target hadn't changed. Well, it had changed, hadn't it? It had come down by 5%. People just hear politicians moving the goalposts.
Lewis, you were so good on my manifesto before. If you look at the manifesto, there was always a reserve, which has always been part to ensure that there is safety within the supply system. So you're trying to compare apples and pears. Our manifesto
then why did you say 100%?
The security of our energy supplies is critical, and there would be a reserve, and that's not a backtracking.
The main question here is why postpone the elections? If Labour is really confident in its vision, why are they afraid to go to the ballot box? Their actions speak louder than any words. This is not just an attempt to develop a better policy, it is a desperate attempt to avoid humiliation. For an increasing number of voters, this is becoming another reason to pay attention to alternatives. The rise of Farage's popularity is not just a threat, it is a clear indication that people are hungry for change. Labour's procrastination may give them a temporary advantage, but it will result in a catastrophic loss of public confidence. Labour claims to be determined to fix the situation in the UK, but their actions suggest otherwise. Angela Rayner continues to insist that Labour is the solution to the country's problems, but the public does not believe in it. Why? Because those who have supported this country for decades, farmers, pensioners and working families, feel abandoned and forgotten. Their hopes are dashed, and they demand a change. Share your thoughts in the comments. See you shortly.